Hey everyone, welcome back to OnBase. I'm your host, Chris Moody, and today I'm very excited to talk to Susan Bloomfield about aligning marketing and sales through authentic storytelling. Susan, thanks for joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I love storytelling. So the first story you get to tell is the journey. What led you to what you're doing today?
I answered an ad.
Yeah.
Legitimately, like I was young, and I answered an ad for a commercial real estate firm, literally like a receptionist job, and I did terribly, but they liked me. They thought, "Hey, would you like to go into research?" And I'm like, "Sure." And really got my feet wet on research, understanding the business. It just fit my personality. I'm kind of like I'm just driven. I'm impulsive. That whole sales environment just kind of worked for me. But then and the company grew, and I always had these ideas for growth and what we should be doing. And I went from research to marketing, and it just kind of, I ended up meeting the right people. People are so important on your journey, and people that really get your strengths. Like, I've been super fortunate to have mentors in my life that just kind of see something and help me, place me in these opportunities that just continually, put me on a trajectory for this growth. And so went from research to research and marketing, and to research marketing. And then I did some like brokerage work where I was, partly in brokerage, and I really started to love business development. And so again, with these mentors and putting me in the right spot, I changed, moved to different companies and saw how they operated. And you learn so much about company, like culture, and then just the company's DNA, and then human DNA, and like how humans operate, and just, it was just such a fun ride. And ultimately I'm like, I love business development ultimately, and putting together these, why should they be talking to you, and why our company, and the why, and trying to solve for that puzzle. And it's hard. It's so hard that ultimately, um, I stayed within commercial real estate. I popped out a couple of times to go to different firms, but that were, touching our industry, commercial real estate. But I went to a tech firm once. I went to a research firm once, and nothing had the same energy as brokerage. And so ultimately that led me to help, set up a business development center for Colliers in the U.S. And then I moved over back to CB, and I've been there 3 times, CBRE, and lead their investor services business pursuit focus from a marketing standpoint. And I learned, just keep learning. And that's what really motivates me, is how do we get better? How do we get people to understand our brand and our value, whether it's a person's brand or the company's brand, and tell a story that just, resonates with people, and then create these high performing teams and motivate them to just constantly challenge their last best. I mean, it's just been quite a journey. And I've had, what's really interesting, and I always tell people, is like, I've had these like little side journeys, like sometimes lateral moves. Sometimes I go back, and people go, "Are you trying to commit career suicide?" And I'm like, "No, but I'm listening to my gut." And ultimately, like, I'm connected to people that want to challenge status quo, want to break the norms. And that's who I tend to be with. And that's ultimately where I thrive. And then I hire builders, and then, we're always in these environments that are just super chaotic. And then you create like all the opportunities there, and you put them on a path. So that's what led me to Stream Realty Partners. And it's by far, I think, the best experience I've had to date, with some great mentors. And the person that brought me here weren't people was my, the person I reported to at Colliers and the mentor, and then Chris Jackson here is my CEO. And just, it matters so much who you work with. And you got to know yourself and what you love to do and where your passion is like ignited. And so, yeah, that's kind of what brought me here.
I love that. So many threads we could pull on. I was laughing too because I've done the exact same thing. There are 2 times in my career that are 2 of the most important moves where I moved a little bit down. So one was at a large company. I moved down in the org chart because I saw this opportunity. And another was just not worrying about salary and finding the right people. So a lot of what you said, I resonate with.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, the authenticity piece, I'd love to talk more about that because I think for many of us, we join companies and try to be, insert company name version of Chris Moody or whatever. But I'd love to hear how aligning marketing and sales depends on that authentic storytelling and those human connections.
Yep. Yeah. It's almost like 2 different things, but I think ultimately to align with sales, it's a difficult thing. And I don't care what industry you're in, it's so hard because, like, especially when you're in sales, I don't think you understand the value that the people on the one-to-many side helps you on the one-to-one side. And a lot of the times, like with salespeople, they're so close to it, I guess, to the situation, that they don't realize that they can commoditize themselves by thinking, I have the best experience. We have a great relationship. I'm like, you and many, many salespeople have a relationship with this particular, investor or a tenant. But the storytelling's huge. When I started at Stream and then ended up really like building their marketing platform, it occurred to me that it's such a great story. First of all, let me say, it helps when you have a great story. If you're surrounded by people that are just excellent and have great passion, and know their purpose, I think that's an easier story to sell. And I tend to gravitate towards that. Because you want to tell authentically this story of, what value this particular company that prides itself on its people and the empowerment of that talent. It's an easier story to tell and to continue to evolve. But building that platform, I knew that our content strategy, let me back up. What I recognized about the brand wasn't the brand itself. The brand is a collection of all of these people. It's almost like you look at and I got to give credit to Chris for this, Chris Jackson. He said, it's almost like those posters where you have all the little pictures that make up the big image. And I'm like, yes, that's it. That is it. And some brands insist on the brand being at the forefront of all the storytelling. So then, it's people get lost in that, particularly in our industry, because the brand wants to own the client. We do it the opposite way. The people are the brand. They have the relationships. They own the client. And if you give them a rich environment and an environment that's only going to make them better and better and to seize the opportunities and make the impact that they want, they'll stay. You tell their story. So the content strategy was people, passion, and purpose. That's what it was in a nutshell. So for example, what we do is bricks and mortar. What we do, we develop commercial assets, primarily office and industrial. Or mixed use environments. We are, creating these office buildings and industrial buildings, but it's so much more than that. We are helping companies who want to locate. And what's that story? What's the story of that CEO that developed this company that needs these distribution centers, or you know, a tech firm that's growing now and is going into this office building, but brand is important. So that space has to reflect and attract his tenant. But how did he or she get there? That success story. What made you think of this product? What made you think or how do you attract talent? We go outside of the bricks and mortar, and the passion and the purpose from our salespeople comes through by having that conversation with that client, their journey, and we tell that. That's the story we tell. It's otherwise we commoditize ourselves. Otherwise we're like everybody else, and that is working. That's what's working. And it's real. So it's not like, you know, it's not like we're just selling a service. We're helping people reach their goals. We're helping, and by virtue of doing that, we reach ours, you know? And so we tell that story, and that authenticity, which is again overused, that word, that term, because people like, you know, we did explore like leveraging influencers, outside influencers to tell our story. And I'm like, and we really did think about that for a second. I'm like, no, that's not it, because we'll lose the value. What you can use outside influencers if it makes sense. Like if we're marketing a property, a big office building in this certain community, could we use an influencer that is so deep in that community? Like maybe they own a restaurant, maybe they're big in architecture, maybe they're, you know, or fashion, whatever it is, they care, but you want to get their opinion on that asset. Perfect. That's fine. But we've leveraged partnerships with experts in their field. Like we have a service line called X2 within our property management. It's really about concierge level service in an office building, meaning that when you walk in, someone knows your name. They know your preferences. They make you feel welcome and at home, right? And that's kind of like what a lot of 5-star hospitality, you know, these hotels and resorts, that's what they do, and they do well. Or if you look at, you know, department stores, a Nordstrom at one time, and probably still, like they made you feel like you were important, and that's important. How do you tell what we're doing? You reach out to a guy like Jay Bear, who has a lot of followers, and he's phenomenal, by the way. And you have a conversation about the experience economy and why it matters. It's not about X2 so much. We are doing it, but it's about the concept and what the value that we're delivering. And that's the kind of thing. I had another one, Chris Shembra, who's phenomenal too. It's gratitude and this leadership kind of combo. And he's all about gratitude. He talked to our Chris Jackson, our CEO, and about leadership, coming at it from two very different perspectives, but still very similar in how we treat people, our people. Those are the types of partnerships, because you're talking about things that, you know, you're leveraging outside perspectives and their expertise, but you're also going to reach a lot of people that we wouldn't normally even connect with. And I think being open to things like that, and being able to tell that story, but we are committed to the people aspect of our business. Like that's important.
Yeah, I love that. And I smiled really big when you said Jay Bear. One email from Jay led to one of my jobs. I mean, it was literally one email that said, Chris, meet Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we actually had a 3-hour dinner together the last time he was in town, which was last month. So yeah, that was one of those where you're like, man, the world is really small when you start to talk about it. I have a question. So the 3 Ps, people,
Mm-hmm.
passion, purpose, right? For those who are in organizations that may not be as people driven, where it might be the big B brand and it's, hey, we're going to follow this brand. What are some strategies that you'd recommend for folks to find that authentic self and really tell their own stories when it may feel like it's brand first, people second in some organizations?
Yeah. I mean, I go back. So like, if it's like, the brand, I think that you you still have to, you may not be telling the story to individual people, but the outcomes, those case studies, and I, again, whether it's widgets or services, what is the value that you delivered at the end of the day? Still people on the other end of that service or product. And so you may not be, I guess what we're doing is we are putting them out in front, telling their story so that it backs into the brand. But if I'm selling a shoe, and Nike did this well, like, right? Like they killed it on all their multiple campaigns, and they kept having different iterations of it, like inspirational to aspirational, back to inspirational. It was always about, it was the shoe, but they told it in different facets with different people, whether they're normal or these pros. And I think other brands are doing this, similar things. I think you still have to bring people into it. So it's more of a case study based story. So, it doesn't have to be about their passion and purpose. It could be very specific to the product or that particular instance of a service, but you got to bring it back to, you got to involve the players and their expertise. So maybe it won't be talking about their passion and purpose, but the why is there, and you've involved real faces that people can relate to. Because I think that's what they don't do. They'll clean it up. They'll sanitize a case study, and there's no, it's all just it's so factual. They're going to lose out on the fact that, but it starts and ends with relationships. It just does. Like, you can't do it any other way.
So. Yeah, totally. People buy from people, which, we'll get to AI, but I do think that's never going to change. We always want to build that relationship and to understand this person's going to make sure I'm successful. What are some of the key skills and competencies that you think are critical to getting even better at storytelling?
So hard. I think, the reason we went to passion and purpose, and that, like how that leads to those things, it's, I think you have to keep digging. So like it's like when you write anything, you come back to it and you think, that's not good enough. Like, you have to really challenge yourself. And we do that. So we run through a lot of different lenses, any particular narrative. And then we say, and then we get feedback. And it's hard sometimes because you're like, nope, we got it. It's like, this is it. We're done. Like, this is gold. And people are like, yeah, I don't really understand what you're saying. And you're like, what do you mean that you don't understand what we're saying? Like, but it's true. I think you have to, in order to get better and better, and analytics are going to play a part here. You got to do a lot of that A/B testing, but it can't be so strict in the A/B world. Like, we got to release it when it's perfect. That's not how you do it. I think you get better and better because you keep putting yourself out there. So maybe it isn't perfect. You think it might be when it goes out, but you got to realize there's going to be a response to any one thing you do. So whether we're putting out the social posts, whether it's in a pitch or presentation, internal communications, you have to watch and then also and look at the data that comes in and see, why aren't people engaging with this post, or why did we lose that pitch? Because it may not even be the content, maybe the way that we delivered it. So you have to continually question and look at what you thought was your best, and just keep pushing for better. And I think always looking for, did we really nail down the value in what we were trying to communicate? Was it understood? Did people say, yeah, that I can see why we would go with you? And we do, when we do the more targeted ads, and we do leverage AI for that. But when we do that, we really are looking for what's sticking and what's not. And then when we're the things that don't stick, we, and wondering, is that timing? Is it the targets? Is it the content? And we just constantly experiment. I think the best way to do this, I think the best way to get better is you just have to constantly challenge yourself and never be complacent with what you think is great. Because it just isn't.
Yeah, I love that. Put that on a t-shirt. Right. It does feel like a Nike t-shirt. Yeah, that made me think too. I mean, one of my most famous slides ever was stop chasing the next big thing and do your job better. It was a similar sentiment. Like, let's be in this, let's improve it. I know that a lot of our listeners are at companies that have amazing products and they're driven by products, right? How can focusing on people, which can include the product, right? You talked about the case studies, but how does that focus on people enhance and improve the marketing and support the alignment we need with sales?
Because it's relatable. I think about, I'm the worst for a brand, by the way. I'm the worst, like, to sell to me. I have a hard time being brand loyal. But for the things I am loyal to from a brand perspective, I always go, why? Why am I loyal to this? Well, because I connect with it. It relates to me. And the things that spark my interest to maybe trial another brand and go out, because they connected with something I need at that moment in time. And a lot of people are looking for the holy grail half the time. So I think it's relatability. And I think it's not the same for everybody. It's, that's why you have to, in a campaign, you've got to really understand who you're trying to connect with, and you've got to have multiple ways to reach people. The mediums which you use, and the way that you say anything you may want, you just have to switch it up. But with people, I'm going to relate. So if I'm looking for the holy grail of skincare, and I'm always trying to do that, especially as I get older, it's frightening. But what I do notice is that I was just on, so I was looking on TikTok, and they were like, where there's big money is women over 50 should be selling product if they have got good skin. And it's true, because why would I buy from a 25-year-old? You should have zero issues with your skin, by the way. But more than that, like, I want to know that they kind of live the same lifestyle, and like, they're running hard, they're stressed out. Like, there are things that I'm going to be questioning. Relatability. If I'm young in my career and I have ambition and I want to grow my career, but I feel stuck. And I don't know who to look at. What's the model, because they don't have the same background as I do. I didn't, what if you're not privileged growing up? What if you don't have mentors around? I'm going to be looking for that person that can relate to my story. And so that's why you need to use and leverage other people's story. But I think it's less about the sell. I think, good brands, they're just trying to amplify success. And by being being connected to success or inspiring outcomes, then people are going to want to get to know you. So that's what you just want to get them to know your brand, because there's only so much you can do when you put it out there on a very surface level, like with sales coming in and let me tell you about me and why I fit Stream or whatever brand you're in. I think that's why it's so critical, because it's that, you're constantly looking for your place in this world. And that's what all these stories help you find, what you need in your place. And so I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does. That was a perfect answer, because, I was starting to associate relatability to all the talk of personalization.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's really for relatability. But I think sometimes we get caught up in frameworks and constructs to say, well, we need content for every stage of the buying journey for this persona. But your point was actually the best one. It's, look, if you're our age and you need a product for us, show me someone like me who solved a problem like mine and I'll trust you, right? Like Zig Ziglar tell us all this time. So I
Ah,
think it was completely related.
yep. Yep.
Well, cool. You talked about AI is helping with some of your targeted ads, but what
Yeah.
are some of your favorite use cases of using AI?
Huh. I just had this conversation today with we have a team going for a massive opportunity, and what's important to those decision makers, part of it, a portion of it, to see where we stand with AI. How are we going to use it to help them? And there's so many use cases for AI, and it goes so far beyond this. And I talk about it all the time. I'm like, it's not just AI, by the way. It's, we're looking at blockchain and where does digital currency play a role, and in our world, because it's higher stakes. It's not just this crypto conversation. You're talking about assets and people's investments, and but as it related to them, like AI, like we use it every day. First of all, with the easy things, everybody is on chat now, ChatGPT, which, by the way, is a joke. We call it Chad, is our favorite word friend. And but we use all of them, right? Whether it's Gemini or God, I can't even think of all of them right now. What I'm seeing, what's cool is that I use it every day, almost with everything I'm doing now. I'm like, I have a question. I want to, oh God, I want to vet out a campaign. How would you structure this up? And now that it's knowing me, in my voice or in my way, whether it's like internal presentations. So we have this social selling campaign we're going to be kicking off really soon. And I've got some real questions. It's going to be highly targeted, like to LinkedIn for now. I mean, we use all the channels, but that's the focus. But we also, it's embedded in a lot of the software we use. So the market intelligence, our GIS program, it's helping us just be more efficient. And I think what it's also, we don't realize, it's just like we're teaching it. It's really, it's being able to organize our intellect and giving it back to us in a way that we can easily, leverage. It's giving us frameworks, I think, that are so hard sometimes when we are managing so many things. It is the best personal assistant that we all have on my team. And we use it for everything, legitimately. So from, organizational design and, competing softwares or competitive analysis. I mean, I can't even tell you, like, and it's not just Chat GPT. It's, that's the primary that we use from a Gen AI standpoint, but, we use programs for Excel. We have a market intelligence tool. I'll give a plug, Navigator CRE, which is awesome. They have a partnership with OpenAI that's going to really expedite our market intelligence capabilities, because, it'll be able to read that data, that the market transactions, and for our analysts, it'll speed up their day so they can focus on the higher level strategy that we need to focus on. Like, I think what happens with marketing everywhere, you spend X amount of time on strategy and the rest is on the execution. But if your strategy's off, you don't have time, you don't get people involved in that planning, then you're going to waste a lot of time on the execution piece, because you're going to have to redo it. And what's really funny about that is too, like, I think the bane of my existence is this idea that, you got to stay tactical. And I'm like, no, like you have to lead with strategy. It's so important. And that's all just figuring out, like, why are we here? Why are you here? What is it that we're trying to solve for? What is our purpose in this? Strategy. The execution piece, although can be complicated given your resources and capital, by far easier than it is to get your strategic plan right. And not everybody can do that. The other thing too, what I've noticed is that, something that we do here at Stream and many companies do, they'll have different programs for understanding how people are wired, right? So, whether it's Myers-Briggs or something else, like we use Culture Index here. Some people are high on the vision and strategy side. Some people are expert executioners. You've got to understand how all these people, how to leverage their strengths. But what I find happens a lot, because when we talk about alignment with sales and marketing, strategists can play the long game. That's what we do. And then tacticians, it's short. You need those short-term wins too, by the way. It's not mutually exclusive, but there are people that just feel like they are strategists, but that's not the role they play. They're better suited for figuring out how we execute on this plan. And I don't even know how we got here, but it is the bane of my existence. I don't know about anybody else's, but I'm pretty sure that's a problem, because it's like, great, let's just do something. And that puts everybody into this like production mode, and it's, and it doesn't lead anywhere, and it wastes a lot of resources and time. And you have to take the time to strategize and really understand the purpose, for the journey you're about to embark on. Right. And that also sets the environment for understanding like what we're going to measure. How do we know that what does success look like? How do we even know that we've got, we've arrived? And so, anyway, but I digress.
No, I love that. And it may be the easiest segue ever into the next question. So we're entering the lightning round. We have quick hitters here.
Okay.
But the question is, what is the single biggest challenge in B2B marketing? And I suspect you may have just hit on that.
Yeah. Yes, I think it is strategy versus tactic or execution. I think it's long-term planning, vision versus short-term gain. Almost always. It's really hard. And I think if you don't have a way to get these little short wins as you're moving along with explaining your story to a client, like these immediate results or the value, but you've got to it's really important that you think about what we're trying to accomplish, see that kind of long game. I think people miss the message, they just, because it doesn't relate to them right now, maybe, or they just don't see it. And I think it's really important. I think it's more important than, it's when you're in the room with people. I think less so when you're on the campaign front, you're trying to sell the story from a one-to-many, but a one-to-one, when we're dealing with investors, long game isn't favored. That level of strategic planning, from what we do, you have to have a way to say, in the short term, here's what we're going to do based on this plan. But 3, 4, 5 years down the line, the ROI is going to be so much bigger because we're doing this on the front end. It's really hard. And when I really say that, it's like anecdotally, like when we're positioning an asset and we just need to lease it up because we've got a lot of shareholders to appease here. And so we're just going to go in market to tech tenants. It's like, yeah, they're not going to come here because, even just quickly we'll look at the ecosystem and we'll do a location and labor report, and we'll really look at kind of all the variables and to reposition an asset for something like that, it's just going to take a lot more work. So what is the most realistic situation? And if you want to reposition that asset and start to attract different tenant base, it's just going to be a longer game plan. Nobody wants to hear that, because right now, like if I have the 70% to fill up, and we're, eating all of this capital every month, that's a hard thing to sell. And like, there's something that's changed too. We're B2B to C, really. And the B to C thing, like, especially for investors of assets, that frightens them, because we're like, we can target market those tenants that are going to come here. And you'd be shocked at who really has influence over decision makers. And that's the other thing. It's like, that's where the strategic planning comes in. That's where it's really understanding, like, you think you have your target figured out, but the deal now with social particularly, it's, you've got these second, third, and fourth tier influencers to that decision maker. And believe me when I say that even boomers are on TikTok. So, like, you know what I mean? It's just, the world is getting smaller, and we have to think beyond kind of that short-term, easy kind of game plan, because it doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. So yeah, it's a long-winded answer, but that is the bane of my existence is the lack of commitment or conviction to strategic planning.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I don't love it, but I love your answer. I don't love having to fight with that. So I'm with you on that one. What books, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you think all of our listeners should check out?
Oh my gosh. A lot. So for me, I'm big on I love masterclass. Like, that brings it all in for me. I love the ability to look on TED Talk, and I spend a lot of my time there. Because I can find any topic and get pretty well versed. I love, God, what is my app? Hold on. I love Blinkist, FYI. And I pretty much spend my time there anymore. I mean, there are a lot of podcasts, and I get probably like 25 recommendations a week for them. And so I have them all bookmarked. I don't always have the most time for them. So that's where I go to masterclass. That's me. But if you ask, like, the majority of my team members, they all have their list, and I don't have them for you. I probably should have written
No,
those.
that's great. I'm a big fan of masterclass too. I mean, I've used that to help kids with things. I've used that to help myself with things, learn how to cook new food. There's all kinds of great stuff there. Who inspires you in the B2B space?
Who inspires me in the B2B space? I don't know. A lot of people. I think, so I think the large consulting firms are doing a great job, at least with those that I'm looking at. I think through thought leadership, like a Deloitte, are doing a really good job. The thing is, I'm always looking at product marketers. So you caught me off guard.
No, that's perfect.
I see a lot of what our competitors are doing, and I keep my eye on that. Inspirational? No. I think some stories are really inspirational. I don't know that they're doing anything that I want to emulate, because I think we have to, in our space, we have to change it up. We have to change and think like product marketers. Where the big retailers, the big consumer brands are doing things where, that would be a really healthy practice for us. And I think that's because they have a world where they can do a deep dive on their client base or consumer base. So, the big brands that inspire me there are, I just mentioned one, Nike is huge for me. Apple is another one. Like I look at all of the big cosmetic brands. I look at all the apparel brands. The big retailers, although they've really dropped off lately, and there's good reason to, why they're doing that. But shockingly, I'm on, what's inspired me most these days is the up and coming personal brands that are on TikTok. So I'm looking now at like singer-songwriters who get massive contracts because they created a relatable song. They're touching on, societal fears, needs, wants, and that is coming through and really resonating with people. And then it's in everything. And you're like, who's that? And what's their story? And the brands that are coming up through TikTok, I look at them. I don't know that I'm as inspired by any B2B that I've seen. So
no, that's perfect. I love that. I mean, I think B2C can dramatically influence B2B too. And a lot of what you said resonates with me. I mean, even in the business context, there are tons of influencers that started on TikTok who have spun out and built amazing brands. One of the top influencers who does sell spoof videos, we overlapped at Oracle, right? And you could have never done that in a lot of Fortune 500 companies, but now that's a thing. So that's a perfect example. And then we have one more question for you, Susan. The most important of all, how can everyone get in touch with you after this episode?
Through the website, my email, my contacts in there. It's all at streamrealty.com for sure. And I didn't answer, but one book that I'm reading, and it kind of lends itself.
I love that. Yeah, even all the extra O's, the long game. Yeah, you almost said that, right?
I did. So no, yeah, streamrealty.com. And I think, hey, another thing to watch, by the way, is I really love all of the residential real estate influencers that have these reality TV shows. And I do watch a lot of the residential real estate advertisements. And so it's because they're so one-to-one or very emotive in trying to reach us on a different level. So I look at that too, by the way. So I encourage people. It's so much, what's interesting. Had you asked me that even 10 years ago, because I don't watch TV. I stream everything. I do look at, obviously blogs, podcasts, things like that. So you get hit less with what used to be the norm. But I will tell you, the one publication that I love for thought leadership, and they often interview a lot of brands, is Fast Company. So I spend a lot of time there. I just wanted to answer that because I felt like, yeah, I don't know who's inspiring me anymore, but yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was a lovely conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It was fun.
Thank you.